At the dawn of independence, Jawaharlal Nehru wanted to build a technological team, one that would build, say, India's massive dams, our big power plants, and also build the India that he envisioned. And in fact, the first IITs, the plan for the first IITs was way back in 1946 when it first came up, the first one eventually being set up in 1950 at IIT Kharagpur. There's no denying that since then, the IITs have put themselves firmly on the world map. They've created exemplary achievers, those who've played a key role in shaping the India story. And of course, we believe and we hope will shape the India story in the years ahead also. But there is no denying at the same time that there's been a cloud over these institutions every now and then, especially in recent times over, say, clashes between top academics and the government over their style of functioning, over their approach to training and teaching, and most importantly, questions on the future of the Indian Institute of Technology, undoubtedly one of India's premier educational institutions. That brings us to our topic of the day, where we ask, is the brand of IIT now being increasingly diluted, especially as we look at increasing the number of these top institutions around the country? Well, a special panel now joins me. Let's get started right away. Dr. Bijendranath Jain, he's Vice Chancellor, BITS Pilani. He's also been ex-HOD Computer Science at IIT Delhi. Thanks, sir, for being with us. Akshay Saxena, co-founder Avanti, that's a social enterprise, and you're also an ex-IITian. Also joining us, Dr. Krishnakumar, he's Executive Director, IL&FS Cluster Development Initiative Limited. And from Mumbai, we're joined by Rahul Jain. He's an IIT Bombay student and an editorial board member of Insight there from IIT Bombay. Thanks all so much for being with us. Dr. Jain, if I could start by asking you, a top brand needs to constantly reinvent itself. It's not just true for IITs, but any big brand that we're looking at. Is that, you believe, a problem that we still go, back to the glory days about look what they've done in the past, look at the past, and not so much thinking about the road ahead, not thinking about the next 50 years, but focusing on the past 5 decades instead?
So if you look at what has been happening over the last 50-55 years, is that initially the IITs were well known for their undergraduate programs. But I think today, and over the last 4 decades or so, IITs have taken to research in a very big way. So I think if today the IITs are somewhere on the global map, it is partly because of the research efforts that have been put in place by the IITs. Going forward, I think the emphasis on research is only going to increase. The number of publications, the quality of publications, the efforts towards solving real problems that confront us in India, and I believe IITs are now beginning to focus on some of those things. Right. And my gut feel is that the brand of IITs has been improving, has improved, and will continue to do so in the coming decades.
Dr. Krishnakumar, come in there. Would you sort of agree? We know that at the core of it, of course, there's great meaning. There is, our top talent also coming from the IITs, already a great talent pool there. But how do you sort of see the road ahead? We've seen no less than, Narayan Murthy say that the IITs aren't the institutions that they set out to be. They aren't the institutions they were, say, in the 1960s and the 70s.
Now the key thing is, as Mr. Jain told, a lot of emphasis on research. There has been shift in focus, like from the basic academics to the research. That's fine. But the problem is, if only the debate point today, because are we diluting the brand? See, that's where I have some observation on it. Sure. Because we started with 5. At least we had the 5 IITs. Known IIT means 5.
Absolutely.
Now, the best cannot be. Everybody cannot be the best, There is a kind of elimination process. Like that's the selection itself. Sure. That's how one gets into JEE.
Sure.
Now, if you instead of 5, if you have 25 in the country, then it becomes an ordinary engineering college.
Right.
How do you differentiate the IITs from other engineering institutions?
Right.
Now, I'm not completely differing, but I'm putting a point.
But
because
it's a point. Right.
Because when you speak of a national level iconic institution, it's an icon. You can't have too many icons.
Right.
When you have too many icons, it becomes common. It becomes just general.
So what's making it stand out?
But what's making it stand out is the quality. You get the cream of the cream.
Right.
You have the best probably training ground. We have best infrastructure.
Right.
And we have best access to all information.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Actually, you've sort of heard both views. There's one view that make it open it up. I mean, we're a young country, eager for the best opportunities, the best educational platforms. Why not, therefore, give it, why only sort of restrict it to these 5 or 10, open it up, put 25 IITs out there. As someone who's been one of those who sort of has, I'm sure, worked really hard to make it to this coveted institution, tell me, how do you see the debate? You are now helping others follow your footsteps. There's no dearth in the demand. We're producing more engineers than perhaps we are using at present. But do you believe that the hunger to get into an IIT is still what it used to be?
No, I think it's like Dr. Jain said, it's higher perhaps. And you know, the perspective I take on this is, you know, and I was I think fortunate to have studied in other educational systems as well. And I think, you know, the way I look at it is, you know, there's two sort of conflicting forces here, right? It is my own desire to be counted as being elite without necessarily having to do anything to show for it.
Sure.
That was obviously truer when there was a very small number of colleges. Like I could have been from IIT, published 0 research studies, done nothing commendable with my life.
Just have the IIT thappa on
and the thappa would count for a lot.
Exactly, yeah.
What's happening now though is I need to sort of prove my mettle a lot more, right? There's many more people, you know, there are in most companies that are doing well, you will find tons of IITians even at an analyst junior level.
Correct.
So you have to do a lot more. So I think that's one part where I think a lot of IIT graduates get very uneasy about the brand being diluted.
I think the decision to set up 8 IITs in around 2007 was a correct decision. Was a correct decision.
I see, okay.
Because left to themselves, the IITs would not have expanded their campuses.
I see.
2% per annum was the growth rate between early 50s and the early 2000s. 2% is not sustainable, right? I think the big challenge for the IITs is to be able to source and retain good quality faculty.
Right.
And I think all the 16 IITs today are focused on this issue of how to get the best talent to come and teach and research on our IITs.
Right. I'll get Rahul in at this point. Rahul, you're a student of IIT Bombay. You've, of course, been hearing the debate as it plays out. It's been all over the media. Questions on just how much is too much, whether the brand is being diluted, whether we should focus on what we have at hand instead of trying to spread ourselves too thin. As a student, how do you see this debate?
5 years ago, if you would have asked this question, are you from IIT, that would have been sufficient. Now you are required to add another question, which ones. That itself is a proof, sort of a proof to the brand appeal of the IITs, that there's a certain discrimination between the older IITs and the newer ones. And MNCs, part of the brand appeal of IITs comes from the fact that who is going to hire. MNCs definitely do not directly prefer to go to the newer IITs when they have a tried and tested product. And considering the infrastructure of the IITs that had been established in 2008, less than half of them have a functioning campus. When IITs are supposed to be pinnacle centers of research, how can you expect the level of competence that the IIT brand has set to sustain when you cannot provide the infrastructure for the same? The number of IITs has tripled since the last 3 years, last decade, but the budget hasn't tripled. And this is a very direct discrepancy that is shown in the system.
Right. We've seen, of course, a focus on funding and also talk of funding going up, especially in the last 2 decades or so. But if I can just get you in, Dr. Krishnakumar, you know, there are others who sort of say that why do we need so many engineers? And the focus also on people are leaving their technical degrees even after getting into IIT. There's this whole IIT IIM package is now supposed to be the in thing. So you get them into these top institutes and then they move away from the technical core areas, especially finance being, you know, management finance being such attractive options now. So do you sort of see all of that also playing a role in how we perceive the IIT?
Well, that's a different question, a very deeper question you've asked for, because it goes down to different levels. Do we need more engineers? Do we need more scientists? If you look at the statistics, I don't have exact numbers on my fingers, but what I can tell you is actually our research quality has not been improving the way the West or the other developed countries have gone. See, take the number of PhDs coming up annually, take the number of international publications coming out from India, it is much lower than even China. Once, you know, we were far ahead of them. Now where do we stand in terms of number of PhDs and all that? So and secondly, now we are talking about Make in India on the one side. Now, if you want foreign technologies and foreign people and just offer our place to come and set up their shop, that is not going to help us in the long run. They will shift when the factors of, you know, the production changes. But if you want to create our own technology, self-sufficiency, self-reliance in our own technology, now we need quality engineers, no doubt about it. We need quality engineers, we need quality scientists, and we need more allocation for scientists, more allocation for institutions.
Before I go into a break, how, you know, the point that Rahul also made, that we've been speaking about earlier, that despite everything, you may sort of want to copy the IIT, you may make 25 IITs tomorrow, another 15, another X number of years, but there's still going to be some that are going to be a cut above the rest. Now, for you as a student and for those who you mentor, which IIT they make it to, is that important? And do you sort of see people giving up, you know, their ranks and saying, we're not going to make it to this, only IIT is not good enough, I'd rather try this again, take the JEE again, and then try to scale up? How often does that happen?
Oh, all the time, right? So I think I advise children actively sometimes to take a year off and try and get into the top 5 IITs for the same reason Sir mentioned, right? I think for me, if I look at my undergraduate experience, right, and how it held me in good stead, the things that I value the most are things like, you know, a robust student body which has autonomy, the accessibility to companies that you can intern with, that you can collaborate with, that you can learn from. And you know, if you end up in a far-flung area with no jobs, with no companies, with nowhere to go out, nowhere to form, you know, no intercollegiate competitions, you are putting yourself at a significant disadvantage. So the short answer is yes, and I think, you know, and that I actively advise children that, you know, if you feel that you have a shot of going to an old top 5, top 6 IIT, take it. Because it will hold you in much better stead than going to a new college.
Larger question of autonomy, where they are headed, here's what we're looking at. We're slipping into a quick break, back with lots more. Welcome back. We're looking at whether brand IIT is being diluted after a whole host of issues, of course, being the focus on increasing the number of IITs drastically in the country. Is that really going to help the brand, or will it affect it adversely? That's what we're looking at. I want to just stay a bit more on faculty. You know, one of the things that Naran Murthy also talked about when you talked about, you know, the research in 2004, China producing 2,652 PhDs in computer science, India 24. I'm just quoting him, but I want to just stay on faculty for a bit and just go back to what you've told me when we were just discussing this in the break, which is, again, faculty is something, teaching is something that we've not looked at traditionally, historically in this country, and then this is the price that we have to pay for it, where there's a generation of students that Akshay is talking about who sort of feel disillusioned because they're not seeing the faculty live up to what it ought to live up to.
I mean, I have seen IIT Delhi from the year 1975 till today. Although I'm not part of IIT Delhi today, I've seen it.
Sure.
The quality of faculty at IIT Delhi has gone up significantly. I would think 2x to 4x in certain departments. Right? And I think that's partly because of the fact that the IITs have now begun to source faculty globally. Right? And I think going forward, we will see more success out there.
I graduated in 2006, so many of my classmates in the last year or two have gotten PhDs and have actually come back, like Sir said, to become faculty members. But none of them have even considered an IIT Jodhpur in their consideration set, right? And I think what's happening is, like he said, Microsoft Research, and it's two things. One is compensation, right? But there's many people who really want to just do research.
So in case if you need more, more institutions of that caliber and that level, do it in a graded way. You pick up the best of NITs, convert them to IITs, rather than going for a greenfield IIT where nothing is available, as you said, back up beyond somewhere.
While we look at expanding the number of IITs, we should also encourage, incentivize, and partly even force the existing IITs, particularly the good ones, to expand in a very significant manner.
That's important.
You know, if you look at IIT Kanpur, for instance, IIT Kanpur sits on a 600-acre land. It also has an airfield and an airstrip, right? It has all the land that's available. Similarly, the other institutions, IIT Bombay in particular, has what, 700 acres, 500 acres of land? They could expand. Today they have 8,000, 9,000 students. when would they have 20,000 students on the campus?
Right.
I think we should make it possible for IIT Bombay to double its size in the next 5 years or 10 years.
I think they'll find the faculty, but you're saying that you've sort of made the point that'll be done, that will fall into place.
So let me add this
Okay,
one bit. Getting faculty is a full-time job for the director or the vice chancellor. If he or she is not focused on this job, you will not get the faculty.
Okay.
And faculty is available if you remain focused on this issue.
That's an important point to make. Good faculty is available, you just have to know where to look for it.
We've done this in IIT Delhi, we've done it in BITS Pilani.
Okay. That's an important one to take away. It's available. We said there's a lot of sort of hand-wringing and chest beating around, where's the faculty, but you're saying it's available. Rahul, I'm running out of time. Tell me one thing. There's so many students out there who keep writing to us about their big IIT dream. You're one of those who are living that big IIT dream. The lakhs of students around the country, as I'm sure you know, who want to be where you are today. What are the two things, if I could ask you, that you would like to see change to make sure that as many students as possible, as many as young Indians as possible, can live your dream?
I personally would have wanted to have an exposure to a more number of fields, just like we have outside. I would rather be selected to a college and then have the ability to decide whatever I wish to take up. And after getting into, when I was coaching for it, primarily there was an illusion of choice of being an engineer or a doctor, and hence I came to IIT, after which I got an exposure of these are all the things that can exist.
Some things in India will never change. This engineer, doctor, no matter where we go, what we talk about all the other options, but being an engineer or doctor, I mean, we're never going to get over that. But anyway, carry on, sorry.
So once I have been inside, now I've been exposed to fields that I am really fascinated about.
Right.
And I'm probably thinking of going into visual communication and other sorts of things. And I personally think sometimes that the brand IIT is probably bigger, sometimes probably bigger than the IITs itself. Consider that from the place I come, there's a coaching for getting into a coaching for getting into a coaching. The IITs are supposed to be for coaching to step into greater things in life. And consider this, that a coaching professor in the reputed coaching institutes can earn anywhere about 10 to 100 times than what an IIT professor does.
That's
so. That
one of
sometimes that shows
yet
that
another terrific irony that of India's education system, that's what happens. I mean, we're aspiring to getting people into the IITs. They're coaching to get into coaching to get into the IITs.
Absolutely.
And that person training them is perhaps more than this world class.
10 times.
That is the commercial model.
That's of course given us enough meat for our next debate, but actually I want to give you the last word. If sort of you were given the task of fixing what's wrong with the way the IITs are functioning, or the plan to change the IIT system in the country, I mean, as someone who's involved with it, has studied there, coaching others to get into it, what are the things that you would do? Top two.
Given the people on the panel, that's a tough ask. But no, but I would say I think a few things. I think we need to just do the simple things right first. Very clearly, my view of this announcement is, it's one thing to make an announcement, because this is the kind of thing which gets you votes, and every government comes and does this. I think what we really need to do is put some meat behind these announcements, be thoughtful in terms of how do we resource setting up these colleges. How do we get faculty hired where we put them up? We do not put them up in districts based on political markers. We put them up based in places where there's industry and there's work. Both, for spouses, for children, schools for children, healthcare. Because I completely agree with Sir here that the goal here is there is going to be hundreds of thousands of very high quality people who want to come back to India with IIT qualification, with BITS qualifications, with PhDs from MIT. All we need to do is provide the infrastructure and the confidence, just like we're trying to lure investors, provide academia the confidence that they will be allowed to work here and they will have resources to work with.
Right, and autonomy.
And autonomy. And these things will sort themselves out. But that is critical as a follow-up step. I think, I honestly don't care whether you call them an IIT or whatever.
Absolutely, there's a whole lot of food for thought there. Is anyone listening? That's the big question. Are we blindly trying to duplicate the success of the IITs without putting our full thought to it? Is it a plan that's going to stay on paper? How long will these new IITs function out of other campuses? Where is the infrastructure? Where are the teachers? And at the end of the day, what does it mean for brand IIT? Well, there's a lot of points that we've discussed today, but of course the remuneration issue is something that we're going to be looking at, and of course coaching as well. So many of you writing in to talk about coaching the IITs, and as it's just we've heard, coaching to coach you to get into the IITs. Well, that's something that we're going to be looking at also. Thanks all so much, gentlemen, for taking our time to speak to us today. It's a wrap then on the program. Keep your thoughts coming into us. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.